I know you've been working on What's Going On and working on, playing some of the funk keys. What else have you been doing to try to stay sane? I mentioned running.
Yeah. Yeah, running's helped a lot. And actually because we're in a little community called the Hamlet, and they just put in like there's this clubhouse by a little pond about a mile away from us, and they just put in like a path around the pond, which is about a mile long. So that's been really great. They did that. Um, yeah, just spending a lot of time outside I've found has helped. I've been reading a lot more. I'm a big fan of this TV show called Sharp, which it's very obscure. It was a series of TV movies from like the 80s to the early 2000s with Sean Bean as like kind of this like swashbuckling British soldier from like the Napoleonic Wars. It's very Sean Bean-esque, but it's a fun show, and it's actually based off a series of books. And I have like a bunch of them just in New York, so I just thought I'd grab them and just be fun to reread them. Yeah, they're fun books to read. So I'm glad I'm doing that. I have found, unfortunately, a lot of my time nowadays is spent on the internet and on video games and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find better ways to keep myself busy. But as long as we're all pressing pause, it's not the worst thing.
Yeah. Do you think there's been any sort of epiphanies that you've thought of, like how is there anything that you're trying to improve in yourself in this time?
Proving myself. Um, I think now I'm taking a lot of time for reflection,
Hmm.
thinking about like how because I feel like I've done a lot like in the past year. I mean, coming into BU, I had no idea I wanted to do any kind of like radio or media thing. I just wanted to try stuff out. It wasn't even something I really considered. So kind of like backtracking that journey and figuring out like why it worked for me and what made me good at it and how I can improve on that stuff, and also thinking about the future a bit, like how much I want to commit to this,
Yeah.
that more like that kind of grand strategy stuff.
I actually I can relate to that because you and I we're kind of going in the same field. I know I'm a journalist,
Yes, we are.
but I want to do radio and TV broadcasting. And what I've been trying to do is study my idols, people that really inspired me to do what I wanted to do. People like David Letterman and Conan O'Brien, Stephen A. Smith, people who I've always really loved their work, but I wanted to know how they got to where they are, and what obstacles they faced. So I'm really similar to what you're doing. I'm reflecting a lot on what I want to do and how do I want to achieve that.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. But how have you been looking at them at all stylistically too? Because that's how I find I'm spending most of my time when I'm like analyzing people who I tend to like.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of old clips of David Letterman and Howard Stern. And one thing I really appreciate about Howard Stern is how he can get information out of people so easily. I watched this interview with him and
Yeah.
Brady after he left the Patriots, and just the way he words questions and the way he is like buddy buddy with them, but also like it's all about push and pull with him, and that's something I'm trying to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very. I think he's like he's more careful. He's definitely got like a whole style to him, which like it works for some people. It works for him clearly.
I think I like his honesty the most when he just kind of says what he's thinking. I think that's something I want to be more honest with. Um,
Hmm.
uh, Rewatching some of my old shows and seeing honestly, like I re-listened to a couple of my episodes that I really liked, but I've been more critical of myself in those episodes, trying to improve upon them,
Hmm.
trying to make them better.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think I should probably try to do some of that.
yeah. Do you think I've been trying to look for the positives in this because I think there's a lot of negatives that we can pull from it. Um, so, uh, have you found any positives since coming back? I know you talked about reflecting a lot. Going for runs. Is there anything you can think of that you think is the silver lining in this crisis?
Um, well, I think just like the abundance of time is great. I mean, right now, I don't have a steady job. I'm done with college work. What's going on drops this Friday, so I'm gonna be done with that. So like my schedule is wide open, and I think a lot of people are in similar situations. So just finding time for like self improvement and learning a new skill or something. Or for me, it's been like just diving deep into a lot of different music. And actually, my like goal for the past month or two has been I'm trying to craft like the perfect playlist.
Oh,
Just trying to figure out what the perfect playlist is. So I'm making playlists for as many people as I possibly can. I think I've made like 30 in the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm just like trying to treat it almost as like storytelling, like I would an actual show or a song.
well, I would love to see some of those playlists. Is there any songs in particular that are staples in those playlists?
There actually, I definitely have some staples and some combinations I like to do. One of the combos I like to do now that I've this is a funny way to talk about it, but is there's an artist named Hugh Masekela who's an African trumpet player, and he got like one of the biggest jazz crossover hits in the '60s with a song called "Grazing in the Grass."
Huh.
And I was recommended a live album of his, and he has a song called "Marketplace," which is very uplifting and it's very like roots based, and I really enjoy it. And then there's another tune by Herb Alice and Tijuana Brass. I forget what it's called, but it's like in that kind of vein, and it's kind of different than what most people are listening to. So I like to put those two together as like non-American forms of music that people can listen to.
Fun
Uh,
enough, I think I've been doing kind of the same thing. I made a really long playlist for both of my grandmothers. I made playlist for you. I've made a playlist
yes,
for
you do.
at least I don't know if I've made 30, but I've made at least 10. Um,
That's good.
and I don't, I'm not I know I've heard of Herb Albert and the Tijuana band that you
Yeah.
mentioned. Um, I've listened to a lot more Marvin Gaye. Uh,
Oh yeah,
Marvin Gaye
that's
is really
great.
great. Outside of us, personal benefits, personal positives. Do you think that there has been any positives that we can gather, whether it be globally or socially?
Um, America, it's tough because I feel like America isn't actually handling this as well as other nations are on all fronts, which is kind of a testament to like how different each state and region is, and just how vast the U.S. is. Like countries like Germany and New Zealand and even Israel, which have been able to actually deal with the virus incredibly effectively and are really coming out of it. Like they're far smaller and they have populations that are just much more homogenous and all kind of understand that like this one thing will kind of work for everybody. So I think those countries have certainly shown their resilience and their companionship. Uh, in the U.S., it's tough because there are a lot of regions that are doing what I think are not not smart, not right things to do. A lot of people trying to open things up too early, which probably isn't the way to go.